Welcome to another episode of the 412 podcast from FBC Mustang. My name is Jeremy Davis, and I'm the associate pastor and your host for another episode. And here's Lauren.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We are happy to have Kent Jaggers, our associate pastor of students, here today. And before we get started, I want to just give a couple quick announcements for some things that you can go ahead and save the date and write down on your calendar. We have this upcoming week on September 14th, a 55-plus worship service with Pastor Michael and Marcy. This is going to be in the choir room, and if you would like to come, there's no sign-up required, and it's no cost. This will just be a good time of singing, teaching, and fellowship. Also, we have a Women's Night of Worship at the end of the month on September 29th, and that'll be from 7 to 8 p.m., and it'll be in the youth center. And this is also another opportunity for women to come and sing and fellowship. And lastly, we have a Membership Matters class that starts this month. It's going to be September 21st for 3 consecutive Wednesdays. And this is for any person or family that wants to get more information about membership at First Baptist Mustang. And this does require some sign-up, so if you want to swing by the Ministry Connection desk and write your name down, or just call the church office and let them know you're interested, that would be starting on September 21st.
So lots of things coming up, and there's other things in addition to that. So if you want to keep up with all the things going on at FBC Mustang, be sure to follow us on Facebook or Instagram, sign up for our newsletters, or check your bulletin from a Sunday morning. Today we have Kent Jaggers, one of our student pastors that are with us today, and this is actually the second time he's been on the show. He is our first official repeat guest, so obviously the ratings were through the roof for the first time he was on. Episode 4 back in July, you can check that out. He was talking about Falls Creek and some different things going on. But Kent, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you back.
Man, I'm glad to be back. Thank you so much. This is what happens when a youth pastor comes out of summer, right? Because evidently that's the only time of the year we work, according to some people. But we do work really hard during that time.
Is it not?
It's been a full, big full summer for us for sure.
Very good. Well, one thing I love about our church, and one reason I'm so grateful to be on a church staff like this one, is that even though Kent is heavily involved in our youth ministry, being one of our student pastors, he's also involved in other various ministries around the church, and that's true for all of our pastors. So Kent is heavily involved in mission efforts, particularly what we'll be talking about is missions to Brazil. So Kent, tell us a little bit about the mission work going on in Brazil, who we're partnered with, and how long we've been doing it, some of those things.
Yeah, for sure. So we started going on mission trips in 2017 to Brazil, and kind of really cool story how we got partnered with them I can share, but we work with an organization called Ray of Hope Amazon. It's run by a great couple, Patrick and Gloria Reynolds, and they've been doing ministry for quite a long time up and down the rivers of the Amazon, doing ministry in villages with indigenous people and river peoples, trying to meet basic needs as they can that come up out there, working to support jungle pastors that are doing ministry, seeking to plant churches and spread the gospel wherever they can. Just a really, really cool ministry that we've been able to come alongside and just kind of strengthen their work, and for them to be able to empower us to be able to do gospel work in the Amazon's been amazing.
So how did you connect with this couple down in Brazil?
Yeah, really, really cool story of God just joining the hearts of different people together for us. And so I came to Mustang in 2015 and immediately began praying about and seeking opportunities and what it would look like for us to be able to take teenagers on international missions, which is not always easy. There's a lot of we have international mission trips since I've been here that have gone just about to every continent. We've been all over the world. Oftentimes those mission opportunities are not well suited for teenagers, just because of the kind of work and the difficulty of travel, the danger involved, that kind of stuff. And so I was praying about opportunities in particular for us to take teenagers on missions. And so that's where it started for me. Meanwhile, the Lord had already been really working on my heart, trying to give me a vision for taking the gospel where others weren't taking it. It was really on my heart, and we were doing great work all over the world. We have partnerships in Asia. We're going to Europe. We were going to Africa. We've got things happening in Mexico and Canada and right here at home in the United States. And so we have a lot of mission opportunities, but I noticed also that we weren't doing any work at all in South America. And so just begin to pray about South America, pray about opportunities for students, praying about opportunities to take the gospel to places where there were no missionaries, there were no pastors, there was just nothing happening. And so I began to call some friendships that I have with people that are down in South America doing mission work, people that I went to seminary with and other things, and not really finding anything that was a good fit. And one day, just scrolling through Facebook, I see a friend of mine that I went to college with is a pastor, and he was doing mission work down in the Amazon. And so he put some pictures up or videos, and it was really cool. So I messaged him. I was like, man, what is this mission work you're doing, like getting on a boat in the Amazon and going out in the jungle? And so he shared that with me and immediately put me in contact with Patrick, who's one of the leaders of Ray of Hope. And so whenever I was talking to Patrick on the phone the very first time, never met this guy, and just telling him, we're interested in coming to South America, heard about your ministry, want to learn more. And so he asked about kind of what we do as a church missions-wise and what we're looking for. And what I told him was that my heart in particular, as well as the heart of the church, was that we want to take the gospel everywhere we can, but in particular, I was interested in taking the gospel where no one else was. I wanted to go to a place where other people either couldn't, wouldn't, whatever it was, take the gospel and do the work of ministry. And so immediately he stops me, like mid-conversation. He's like, hold on, I got to go get my wife. And he goes and gets Gloria, brings her to the phone, and we meet, and he says, share again with her what you just told me. And so I share that again with her, and she says, Kent, this is actually quite amazing. We have had an opportunity for our ministry to go to a particular area of the jungle that we've never been, and to our knowledge, no one else has ever been. And we've been waiting for someone to come along that would partner with us in this ministry. And so they have a lot of ministry partners that come from Canada, the United States, Europe, and do mission work with them. But because of the distance, we get on these double-decker open-air boats that travel rather slowly at times. And it's about a 30-hour trip by one of those boats out in the jungle. And because of that, most of the mission teams are like, man, we don't have that much time. We don't want to go that far. Because it's far, you're also spending a lot more money on rentals and on fuel and other things. And so it's just too expensive, too far. Other teams really didn't want to go there. And so they've been praying for someone to come along that would go on this journey with them. And so when we called, it was just a God-ordained opportunity for us to join together in ministry. And so both of us recognized that really quickly, and we began to put together a partnership to go and do ministry with them. And so we've officially now gone as a church 6 times down to the Amazon. We work on the Angia River doing ministry with the Satere Maui people. And the Satere people do have a gospel presence. There are believers among the Satere, but in the river region we're in each of the villages we go to, there is no gospel work happening. There's no church present in most of the villages we go to. And so our job is very simply to share the gospel, to see people become believers, and try to empower them to then turn and become ministers of the gospel themselves. That's been the work that we've been a part of. It's been absolutely incredible.
That is too cool. What a great story and a great way to come to know somebody and get connected with a missions opportunity like that. So once you're on the ground, once you've taken this 30-hour boat ride, what does the mission work look like? What are you actually doing? Because I think a lot of people, their mind goes 2 places. It's either like door-to-door evangelism, or we're building a building. What is the mission work on? Once you have boots on the ground, what does it look like?
Yeah, it can vary a little bit. We do 2 different types of trips. We take these big boat trips, which can include anywhere from 15 to 20 or more people from our church that will gather and travel down there to do ministry. And then we get there, we get on the boat, and we actually are joined by 12 to 15 Ray of Hope team members. So we've got a large Brazilian team of cooks and translators and jungle guides. And so there can be easily 35, 40 people on the boat. And then once we actually hit the region, we pick up these random indigenous people that jump on and hang their hammocks with us, and the team just kind of grows. By the time we're done, it's overflowing with people, like the boat's going to sink or something. But so on those trips, we take big teams and we go in and do camps. Those camps, usually we take some sort of social elements where we can meet basic needs to kind of draw people in to want to hear what we have to say. And so we'll do a variety of things. We take food bags in with us. We'll do minor medical clinics. We take reading glasses. Glass is actually a major need for these people that have lived their entire lives outside in the harsh sun on the water, which reflects that sun. So a lot of them have eye problems. So we take reading glasses, and water filters has been a big part of what we do as well, to help the people be able to gain some health rather than just drinking the dirty river water all the time. And so we do a variety of projects like that, donated clothing and things, just to meet needs. And then we draw people in with those projects, and then we're able to share the gospel with them. And so we do these camps where we'll do singing and dancing and kind of have fun with both adults and children alike, and then share the gospel with them in those moments, have team members share their testimonies. We'll have someone preach and share the gospel message. And then from there, break out even more, where we can meet with the people more one-on-one and discuss what's really going on in their lives and try and make points of connection to the gospel with them. Once we're done with that, we get into our social camps we do, meeting those physical needs that they have. We'll go do home visits and meet people right where they're at. We usually spend about a day in a village, head back to the boat, get on the boat, and we start to slowly drive up or down river to the next village, where we'll get off the boat the next day and go do ministry. We also take trips with small teams. Sometimes that's just me and one other person, or myself and a couple of people, and we travel in by a speedboat that's more like kind of a Greyhound bus on water, public transportation, and we catch a small speedboat out in the jungle. We drive in and we actually go into a village, hang our hammocks in one of the people's homes there in the indigenous village, and live life with them. So we sleep right there in their home with them. We eat in their kitchen. We use what's they call a bathroom facility. Like, it's just, we live the indigenous life out in the Amazon rainforest. Yeah. It's a little bit wild, but it's absolutely incredible because we're able to go in and do life on life. And we take small teams there because they're heavy on teaching and discipleship. Our goal is to take the believers that are present there and really equip them with the truth of God's word, train and develop them to be able to do the works of ministry when we're gone.
Now, obviously, one of the challenges is the language barrier.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like when you're traveling to people that maybe have never heard the gospel, or traveling to different groups that maybe differ in language? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Without a partnership with a group like Ray of Hope, it would be impossible. Mm-hmm. And so we're so grateful for them. They have a great base of people. And that's why if we take 20 people in with us, there may be 15, even 20 from their team that join us. So we make together a very massive team that goes out into these villages and does ministry. And as a part of their team, they have a great network of young believers that are translators that are trained in English and can translate for us. And so hands down, on any mission trip I've ever been on, they have the best translators I've ever worked with. And so it's a huge blessing, because when I'm standing there preaching the gospel, preaching whatever text of scripture I am, when you go on some mission trips, you're just trusting that God is like making sure that this translator is actually speaking the truth. Because when we're talking about things of God, we want to speak very specifically, like we choose our words carefully. And and I'm grateful that whenever we go with Ray of Hope, I know that their translators, they know these truths already. They're able to speak them in a biblical way, and they're going to do a good job re-communicating what I've been communicating in English. Now the challenge gets when we always have to translate through one of these Ray of Hope translators into Portuguese. But in many of the villages we go to, especially the ones that are more distant from kind of main travel paths and stuff, they're far more unreached tribes. Then we also have to translate into their own dialect, which is the saturated language. And so that becomes quite difficult and really interesting whenever it starts in English, translated to Portuguese, and then some random villagers translating it into Satire and trying to do their best. And we just trust that God does that. But I tell you what, it'll take a 10-minute sermon and turn it into a 30 or 40-minute one. That's for sure. And so it's always interesting, but we're grateful. Ray of Hope has a great team, and God just kind of has given us opportunities to go in and be able to build these relationships with people through them. And so they do a really good job with it, for real.
So there's obviously language barriers. Do you also run into religious barriers, or I don't know. I don't know what the religious background of some of these tribes would be, but I would imagine it'd be mystical or something of that effect. Do you run into that much? Yeah,
we run into a lot of different things. There's definitely kind of a mystical animism in the background of them, but the truth is, for a lot of the Satire people, they claim Christianity. And so what we discovered the very first time we went into Ipiranga, which is kind of our home base for ministry, where we've now planted a church and a pastor that's doing the work of ministry there. That's where we typically sleep whenever we go and live in the villages with them. But in their village, when we first went, most of them would have called themselves Christians. And we did a camp, and in that camp I preached and I shared a very simple, like, creation to Christ gospel message. And I remember one of the village elders coming up to me with a translator afterwards and just saying thank you. And he said through the translator, he said, I've never heard these things before. The things you're saying are truly wonderful. We've never heard these things before. And I turned to the translator and I said, don't translate this to him, but understand, like, if he's never heard these things before, he's not a Christian. Because what's happened is 60, 70 years ago, there would be these missionaries that would come through. They would, quote unquote, preach the gospel, get someone to raise their hand, claim a convert, and now because the Catholics have one person willing to claim Christ, whether they really understood the gospel or not, they didn't, but they would claim Christ, and now they're a Catholic village. Or an Assembly of God missionary would come through, and they would get some so-called converts, and now it's an Assembly of God village, and so everybody in the village will claim Christ. They don't own Bibles. They've never read a Bible. They don't know the simple truths of the gospel message. They're not redeemed people, but they think they are. And so while we thought we were going to be walking into this truly, like, really animistic, mystical kind of people, and there is some of that sneaks into their faith beliefs, but what we found is a lot of people that think they're Christians, and they have no idea what that actually means. They've never had a missionary or a pastor ever invest in them with the truth.
Wow.
So what would you say is the hardest part about going on this mission trip?
Yeah, I mean, one of the initial hard things about our trip is it just scares people. The way that Hollywood portrays the Amazon is really scary. Like, there's giant snakes, there's alligators. They're actually called caiman, but there's alligators, there's piranha. If you go to the jungle, you're gonna get eaten. And if you don't get eaten by one of them, or jaguars even, right? If you don't get eaten by one of them, you're gonna get eaten by mosquitoes, right? You're gonna come home, if you come home, and you'll die from disease. This is the way that everyone kind of depicts the Amazon. When you actually get out on it, it's more like getting on a pontoon boat in a lake in Oklahoma. Like, it's not the kind of scary that everyone makes it out to be. In fact, it was on my 6th trip that we just took that I got my first mosquito bite in the jungle.
Interesting.
And so that's one of the initial difficulties, is helping people get over, like, the Hollywood scare of the Amazon, and be willing to go on the trip and realize that it's not nearly as scary as you'd think. In fact, some of the other trips we go on, quite honestly, are a lot more dangerous. Like, go to Rome, like one of our mission teams did, and have some people try to attack you. Like, that's happened in real life. But when we get out into the jungle, the people receive us so well. They're excited and happy for us to come and open their villages to us, and tell us, this is your home now. We want you here. And so that's really good for us. It's not nearly as scary as everyone makes it out to be. Another hardship for our trip is just the distance and the time. It's the reason other churches weren't willing to go where we go in the jungle to this river system. we have an 11-day trip, plus or minus, depending on the trip, and it's that long, and we only get maybe 4 days of ministry in the jungle, even though the trip is that long, because it's a full day of flying. There's transition time. It's a full day plus of a boat ride. There's lots of hours of travel in between villages that we go do ministry in. And so the travel for it is just challenging. Yeah. It's not challenging travel. It's just slow travel. It takes a long time. And so that's definitely a difficulty in the trip, but it's one that we're willing to do. Yeah. It makes it harder because people have to take off work for a long time, and it's a little bit expensive too, but it's worth it. So
that's great. Now, you were just recently in Brazil.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about that trip.
Yeah, praise the Lord. We were able to go twice this year. We decided, right, since we hadn't been for a couple of years because of COVID, we're just going to go twice, and this last trip we went on, it's unique coming out of COVID, and there's still vaccine requirements for travel and difficulty, and people are still kind of COVID scared about traveling to other places because you don't know what kind of health care you're going to have there. So rather than taking a large team like we used to take, we took a small team of 5, and we did sort of a smaller discipleship mixed with the bigger camp kind of feel for a trip. And so back in July, we took our team of 5. It included 3 college girls. They're part of our college ministry that grew up out of our student ministry as well. And so really excited for them to be able to go. A couple of them have been trying and wanting to go on this trip for several years as students, and just couldn't because of COVID. And so they were finally able to go. We went in, hung our hammocks in Pastor Jose's home in Ipiranga, one of the indigenous villages, and that was kind of home base for us. And so we did ministry there, but then each day we would hop in our boat and we'd travel a couple of hours to other villages and other places to go share the gospel and to meet needs. And so we spent several days doing that. Really, really great time of ministry. The people were so grateful to have us there. There's one village we went to. The last time we were in that village was a very short visit in, I believe it was 2018. And we got back into that village, and we were talking to people, and so we asked the question, like, how often do you get visitors? And they said, never. And I said, so when was the last time you had a visitor come to your village? And they said, the last time you came.
Wow.
And we were like, we started counting, like, that's 2018. That was a long time ago. They said, you were the last people that came to visit us. And in fact, they told us the first time we came that we were the first white people that had ever stepped foot in their village.
Oh, my goodness.
Surely they've seen some Brazilians come. They have like nursing teams that go out in the jungle and stuff sometimes, but they said they were the first white people that ever came there. And so really cool to be able to go again to places where other people aren't going.
Yeah.
It's sad because then you have to leave.
Right.
And we just, it's one of our hearts for this ministry is that others would be being raised up through our ministry to go and to tell and to do the work of ministry. So in a lot of ways, what we went to do in July was to meet. We shared the gospel in some new places, but we wanted to meet with believers and really empower and strengthen them and call on them to find ways to go and share the gospel in their own home, in their own river region.
That's wonderful. Now, I know this trip is a big commitment. You said it's about 11 days travel. What kinds of people do you think this trip is for?
Yeah, it's a really unique and cool trip that by design is open to most people. We take, on this trip, we take people that are into their 60s, that are able to go and handle it, and we also take teenagers. And one of the things I wanted to do in designing a trip, and it was a great partnership for us with Ray of Hope, is that I wanted an opportunity for our teenagers to go on mission, although we recognized that the nature of this trip is not one that you can only take teenagers. You needed adults there because you can't necessarily just put teenagers up in front of adults and preach and it necessarily be well received. And so we've basically made this trip where it's open to all adults that are members of our church, and then any high school or above can also go with us, and I'll take high schoolers kind of under my watch care. But we've also had a number of middle schoolers go on the trip, accompanied by a parent or a guardian of some sort. And so There have been one really cool thing that I absolutely love about this trip is we've had not just a few, actually a bunch of parent-child pairs that have gone on the trip. And we get to see a mom or a dad serving side by side with their kid in international missions.
Oh, that's so neat.
And getting for them to go through that journey together, just talking to each of them after, say it's just one of the most incredible things ever that they got to go and do that with their child. And so we've worked really hard to set it up in such a way that anybody middle school and above can go and will have a place to serve and will feel like not only do they have a good experience, but they were used on the trip.
That's really cool. So what about somebody who's not physically able to go? How can they still be a part of this and support this and help you as you go to Brazil?
Well, for sure. There's so many people that are just incredible supporters of our ministry to do mission work all over the world as a church. And so of course, just by regular faithful giving of our church members, we're able to support our missions funds in our budget that help send teams all over the world. And so just for people to know, like, if they are faithfully giving to the Lord and to the ministries of this church through their tithes, they're already supporting the work of missions around the world, which is really, really cool for people to know. We do have people that give special financial gifts towards a trip like ours at sometimes too, and that will find ways to meet different donation needs of items we want to take with us to be able to do the works of ministry. So there's a lot of people that have got involved with that. We've had a team of ladies in our church that actually got together and decided they were going to start sewing a bunch of dresses, and they sewed, like 75 dresses or something like that. And we took them with us and were able to distribute them to these girls throughout the jungle. And so they were able to, even though none of those ladies would go on the trip with us, they found a way to be able to plug in and be involved. And then just, of course, honestly, we don't just want, we need for our church to be a people who pray in everything and about everything. But when we're talking about taking the gospel to these really difficult, challenging places, it has to be bathed in prayer, and it has to be the will of the Lord for us if it's going to be successful. And so we just want to remind people to be praying fervently. Pray for Ray of Hope Amazon, the work that they do all year long down in the jungle, for Patrick and Gloria as they lead that ministry, and to be praying for our teams as well. Yeah. In particular, I'd say right now we want a lot of prayer for one man named Jose. He's a man who was distant, did not care, wasn't very involved in what we did on the first trip we went on. He was one of our team members, one of the people in the village that we went to. He's now become a team member of ours. But when we first went, he didn't want to hear or be a part of anything we did. He was distant. But he heard the gospel, and it began to do its work. The second time we went, he was intrigued, he was interested, and before we left, he had trusted in Christ. And he was just demanding, basically, to be baptized, because that was a part of what we had taught on. And so we were able to take him under his leadership as an elder in the village, and take a variety of other people in the village down into the Amazon River, the Angirá River is technically what that one is, and baptize a handful of people. And then we began to pray for him in particular to see, is this the man that you're raising up, God, to be a leader? And he's taken that call. He reads the Bible more than I do. I mean, he's what else is he going to know? Kind of old man living in a village in the jungle. Like, he just reads his Bible for hours a day. He's growing rapidly in his faith, and so we've taken books and materials to try and support that growth and help develop him. When we go, I spend a great deal of my time trying to develop him as a pastor, and he's taken the call to really be the leader, the pastor of a church in his village. And so he just needs all the prayer he can get as he begins to work through that journey of pastoring and leading his people. We're also praying for him that opportunities would open for him to go and be a missionary, so he can take the gospel not only to the people of his village, but to other villages nearby. So that is Pastor Jose.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
We will certainly be praying for him and praying for the continued mission efforts that are going on. It sounds like a lot of great work is going on. And for me, this is something I could sit and just listen to stories all day. It's so incredible. But we need to wrap up this podcast, this episode. We're going to wrap up with a lightning round if you're ready. Just one word, quick.
I'll try.
Yeah, quick answers here. What is your favorite thing about Brazil?
The people.
The people.
Yeah.
Very good. What is the weirdest food you've eaten while you've been there?
Oh man, it's all good. I don't know that I've had weird food.
Okay.
There's just good fish.
Very good. What's your worst travel experience?
Stuck in an airport for hours and hours, exhausted at the end of the trip, to the extent that on my last flight home back to Oklahoma City, I passed out on the airplane. Literally passed out, exhausted, dangling in the aisle. The flight attendant had to come pick me up. They thought I was dying.
Oh my goodness!
I had an ER doctor, Dr. Plinsky, sitting in the aisle behind me. He's like, he's fine. He's fine.
He's
he didn't even help me.
I hope you didn't have a First Baptist shirt on.
That's hilarious. Okay, what's your favorite souvenir that you've brought back?
Ooh, I've got a bow and arrow that they would use to hunt, like a true bow and arrow that was a gift from a chief of a tribe, the Achuari tribe. It's sitting in my office right now.
Very
cool.
cool.
It's that and an arrow that they use for fishing, like a 3-prong arrow.
So is the blowtorch that's in your office, is that from Brazil?
The blow dart gun is from down there as well.
Okay.
I've tried to use it here unsuccessfully, but it's a fun toy.
Very good, very good. Well, Kent, thank you so much for being here again and sharing with us what all has been going on in Brazil and the efforts going on there. We're so excited to see the future of that and see that ministry continue to grow. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the 412 Podcast. If you would like more information about FBC Mustang, please go to fbcmustang.org, or you can follow us on social media. We look forward to another episode in a couple of weeks. We'll see you next time.